Hi, scary lovers. Please like and subscribe if you're into scary stories like me. In a small, forgotten village, nestled between dark forests and steep hills, there was an old legend about a coven of witches. They were said to gather in the depths of the woods on the nights of the full moon, chanting spells that twisted the very fabric of reality. One autumn night, a curious girl named Alara decided to uncover the truth behind the tales. The villagers warned her to stay away, recounting stories of those who had ventured into the woods, never to return. Ignoring their fears, Alara set out with a lantern, its flickering light barely piercing the dense fog. As she walked deeper into the forest, the air grew colder, and an unnatural silence enveloped her. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a clearing bathed in moonlight, where gnarled trees formed a ring. In the center stood a cauldron, bubbling with a greenish liquid that emitted a foul odor. Around it, shadowy figures danced, their eyes glowing like embers. Alara's heart raced as she realized she had found the witches. They were chanting in a language she didn't understand, their voices weaving together like a sinister melody. Unable to move, she watched as they tossed in strange ingredients: animal bones, herbs, and something that looked like a heart into the cauldron. One of the witches, with skin as pale as the moonlight, turned her head suddenly, locking eyes with Alara. The girl felt a cold wave wash over her. The witch smiled, revealing sharp teeth. "Welcome, little one. Join us, and you shall learn the true power of the night." Before Alara could flee, the ground beneath her trembled, and the trees seemed to whisper her name. The other witches turned, their eyes fixed on her, and she realized with growing horror that she was surrounded. The forest closed in, shadows dancing menacingly around her. Desperate, Alara grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it into the cauldron. To her astonishment, the liquid boiled violently, sending a plume of smoke into the air. The witches shrieked, their voices turning from song to rage. "You dare interrupt our rite?" Seizing the moment, Alara ran. The path twisted and turned, the forest morphing around her, but she could feel their presence chasing her, cold and hungry. Every glance over her shoulder revealed shadowy figures closing in, their laughter echoing like a haunting lullaby. Finally, she burst into the village just as dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight piercing the darkness. The witches, held back by the light, shrieked in fury from the edge of the woods, but Alara was safe. The villagers, seeing her pale face and wild eyes, rushed to her side. For years afterward, the villagers spoke of Alara's bravery. But at night, when the wind howled through the trees, she could still hear the whispers of the witches, forever echoing in her mind, reminding her that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. And on nights when the moon was full, she could feel their gaze, lurking just beyond the tree line, waiting for the right moment to claim her as one of their own. Story 2. In a secluded village surrounded by a bleak moor, the locals spoke in hushed tones of the Hollow Witches. Legends claimed they were ancient beings who could steal the souls of the living, trapping them in their twisted, thorny trees. Every year, during the harvest moon, villagers would leave offerings at the edge of the moor to appease them, fearful of their wrath. One year, a young boy named Thomas, emboldened by tales of bravery, decided to explore the moor on the night of the harvest moon. Ignoring his mother's warnings, he ventured out with only a lantern to light his way, the fog swirling around him like ghostly fingers. As he walked deeper into the moor, he noticed the trees beginning to change, bark transforming into twisted faces, their mouths open in silent screams. The air grew thick with a strange energy, and Thomas felt a chill creep up his spine. He soon stumbled upon a clearing where the ground was carpeted with bones, remnants of past offerings, and in the center stood an ancient tree, gnarled and blackened. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow over the scene. As he approached the tree, whispers filled the air, beckoning him closer. "Join us, young one. We have waited so long for a new soul." The voices crooned, sweet yet sinister. Panicking, Thomas turned to flee, but the fog thickened, wrapping around him like a shroud. The whispers grew louder, turning into a cacophony of laughter and lament. From the shadows, the hollow witches emerged, their forms shifting and swirling like smoke, eyes glowing with hunger. "Did you come to play?" One witch hissed, her voice smooth as silk. "Or perhaps to become part of our forest?" Desperate, Thomas clutched his lantern, its light flickering in the oppressive darkness. He remembered the old tales, the power of the light. "You can't have me," he shouted, holding the lantern high. For a moment, the witches recoiled, their laughter turning to hisses. But the fog pressed in, relentless and suffocating. With a burst of courage, Thomas hurled the lantern toward the ancient tree. It shattered upon impact, flames erupting into the air, illuminating the clearing. The witches shrieked, their forms twisting in agony as the fire scorched the ground. Thomas seized the moment and sprinted back through the fog, the cries of the witches echoing in his ears. "You will pay for this, child," they screamed, their voices fading as he broke free from the Moor's grasp. When he finally reached the village, breathless and trembling, the dawn light broke over the horizon. The villagers rushed to him, eyes wide with fear and relief. "What happened?" they asked, and he recounted his harrowing tale. Though he escaped, Thomas knew the witches would not forget. Every year, on the night of the harvest moon, he could feel their eyes watching from the edge of the moor, waiting for their chance to reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs. And in the stillness of the night, when the wind howled through the trees, he heard their whispers, weaving promises of revenge that would haunt him forever. The last story for today. In a quiet hamlet by the sea, tales of the Wraith Witches were passed down through generations. They were said to dwell in an abandoned lighthouse, using its high tower to lure sailors to their doom with haunting melodies. The villagers warned that those who ventured too close would vanish, swallowed by the tides and the witches' dark magic. One stormy night, a brave fisherman named Jacob, weary of the old wives' tales, decided to investigate the lighthouse for himself. He was skeptical, believing the stories were mere superstition. Armed with a lantern and his fishing knife, he set out through the howling wind and rain. As he approached the crumbling structure, the lighthouse loomed above him, its light long extinguished. He stepped inside, the door creaking ominously behind him. The air was thick with the smell of salt and decay, and shadows danced in the corners. Jacob called out, taunting the supposed witches. "Come out! I'm not afraid of you." The response was a chilling silence, broken only by the crash of waves against the rocks below. Undeterred, he climbed the spiral staircase, each step echoing in the empty tower. As he reached the top, he peered out at the raging sea, the moonlight reflecting off the turbulent water. Suddenly, a haunting song floated through the air, ethereal and beautiful. It wrapped around him, pulling him closer to the window. He could see figures in the distance, their ghostly forms gliding over the waves, singing with voices that seemed to beckon him closer. Jacob felt a strange compulsion, as if the very essence of the melody was drawing him into the depths. Just then, he remembered the villagers' warnings. The song was a trap. Realizing the danger, he shook his head and stepped back, but the witches were quick. The room grew cold, and the shadows coalesced into dark, swirling shapes. The witches appeared, their faces obscured by cloaks, eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "Stay with us, Jacob," one whispered, her voice like a breeze through a graveyard. "Join the chorus of the sea." Jacob's heart raced as he turned to flee, but the door slammed shut. The witches advanced, their laughter rising like the sound of crashing waves. "You cannot escape the tide," they chanted, their voices intertwining with the haunting melody. Desperate, Jacob grabbed a rusted lantern from a nearby shelf and smashed it against the floor. The glass shattered, and the flames erupted, casting flickering light across the room. The witches recoiled, their forms momentarily disrupted by the fire's glow. Seizing the moment, Jacob lunged for the window. He could hear the ocean roaring below, and with a deep breath, he jumped. The water swallowed him, cold and dark, but he fought his way to the surface, gasping for air. As he swam frantically to shore, He could feel the witches' presence lurking beneath the waves, their voices echoing in the depths. He reached the beach, collapsing onto the sand, shaking and terrified. The storm began to fade, but the threat of the witches lingered like a shadow. From that night on, Jacob never spoke of what he'd seen, but he knew the truth. The Wraith Witches were real, and they would wait, watching from the depths, always ready to reclaim what they believed belonged to them. On stormy nights, when the wind howled and the waves crashed violently, he could still hear their song, a chilling reminder of the darkness lurking just beyond the light. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Please let me know down below what kind of stories you would like to hear more from. Like and subscribe if you're into scary stories like me. Stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow.